In a world where geopolitical lines are fluid and alliances shift with public sentiment and economic interests, the U.S.-Canada border, often seen as unchangeable, might not be as permanent as it seems. Imagine a scenario where certain American states, disillusioned by federal decisions or drawn to the social and political equilibrium of Canada, choose to detach from the Union and align themselves with the northern neighbor. Sound improbable? Think again. Numerous U.S. states are already closely intertwined with Canada economically, culturally, and politically. Let's explore 7 American states that, under the right circumstances, might seriously contemplate becoming Canadian provinces. 1. Michigan, economic powerhouse with cross-border ties. Michigan maintains the strongest economic interdependence with Canada of any U.S. state. With over $80 billion in annual bilateral trade, the Detroit-Windsor corridor is a lifeline for industries on both sides, especially the automotive sector. Shared energy infrastructure and daily border crossings underscore how closely these regions operate. Some residents, harking back to post-Toledo War tensions, have even historically entertained the notion of realigning with Canada. 2. Alaska, geopolitically isolated, naturally aligned. Physically separated from the continental U.S., Alaska often feels like an outlier. The state must traverse Canadian territory to access the lower 48, and its resource-driven economy centered around oil, fisheries, and minerals interacts extensively with Canadian markets. Alaska also shares defense operations with Canada through NORAD. With its distinct historical background, having once belonged to Russia, and a deep economic and logistical partnership with Canada, Alaska could feasibly lean towards sovereignty or integration with its northern neighbor in turbulent times. 3. Vermont, independence reimagined. Before it joined the U.S. in 1791, Vermont stood as an independent republic, a status it proudly recalls. Today, the Second Vermont Republic movement continues to advocate for secession, citing cultural and political alignment with Canadian values. Vermont's agrarian economy, community-first ethos, and progressive ideals reflect Quebec's social model. With strong trade in tourism and agriculture and a shared love for snowbound living, it's not hard to see Vermont considering an alternate future, one that points north. 4. Washington, shared progressivism and infrastructure. Washington state boasts enormous trade volumes with Canada, exceeding $20 billion per year. Canadian hydroelectricity powers parts of the state, and cities like Seattle and Vancouver share a technological, eco-conscious, and social-minded culture. Proposals for transnational high-speed rail and collaborative projects signal a trend of growing integration. In the event of national polarization, Washington might prioritize its economic stability and ideological synchronicity with British Columbia. 5. North Dakota, rural bond with Western Canada. With its expansive exports, nearly $6 billion annually, North Dakota maintains vital trade channels with Canada, especially Alberta and Manitoba. Its energy sector, grain production, and even healthcare connections are tied to Canada's markets. Political leanings in North Dakota often echo the libertarian conservatism seen in Western Canadian provinces. There was once even talk of creating a North Dakota-Manitoba economic zone. 6. New Hampshire, defiant and independent. Fiercely protective of its autonomy, New Hampshire's live free or die attitude has fueled statewide debates about independence. With over $8 billion in trade conducted with Canada, it enjoys solid commercial links. The state's low-tax ethos, anti-regulation stance, and love for the outdoors align more closely with Canadian decentralism than with federal mandates. A federal breakdown could easily see New Hampshire revisiting the idea of charting its own path, perhaps alongside Canada. 7. Montana, prairie kinship with Alberta and beyond. Stretching over 500 miles of borderland, Montana shares not only physical space with Canada but also a spirit of frontier resilience. Ranching, forestry, and hunting are part of a shared cultural identity with provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan. Numerous families have cross-border ties, and many Montanans joke that only healthcare separates them from Canadians. With over $700 million in trade and growing dissatisfaction with federal oversight, Montana could be persuaded to explore other affiliations. A cross-border future. Though still hypothetical, these connections, economic, social, and historical, suggest that the idea of some U.S. states redefining their national identity isn't entirely fantasy. In times of significant upheaval, the pull of stability, cultural familiarity, and practical integration might just prompt some regions to consider crossing over literally and politically to join Canada.